Buying and selling miniature steam engines part 2. When trying to find the true value of items on the internet auction site that we all know and love, beware, because often the prices are not accurate. The first thing to do is to modify the search parameters to only look for sold items, and remember that you are only bidding on a photograph, which does not show the true mechanical condition of the item. There are a lot of purposely inflated high-price listings online which show artificially high valuations, so be very careful. At this point, I would just like to say that the engine you are looking at was not bought via any internet auction site. It was bought from an antique dealer, and it was quite nice really for what it was, although it needed a lot of work, more work than I initially thought when I looked at it on the bench in the antique dealer's premises. This was one of many engines that was bought by a friend of mine who died recently, and I'm currently negotiating prices for me to buy them. I did a lot of work for my friend on the engines that he bought from either eBay or from antique dealers. My friend frequently bought engines from various sources, mainly online, and some of them were absolutely incredibly bad. I have successfully bought engines online, and I still have a few of them, but I've bought one or two that were very bad. One of them arrived in a parcel and smelt of paint. It had been painted to make it look good, and that immediately went in the bin. Not this particular engine. What I'm doing here is just showing how bad some of the engines were as my friend bought them via the internet. Look at the flywheel on this one. This is one of the engines I'd rather not buy from his son. I renovated it over a period. It took a long time, and in the end it looked like this, a very desirable engine, or so you would think, but the cylinders are made of brass, entirely the wrong material. I remember one day in 2019 my friend phoned me to tell me that he'd bought an engine, and he was very pleased with it, and indeed it does look okay, but unfortunately it is far from okay. Here's an extract from a video I made showing some of the details of it. As it says on the plastic label at the front of the engine, this model of a triple expansion steam engine was made by the late Professor Sir Charles Inglis. And as far as I am aware, this engine spent most of its life in a glass case at Cambridge University, and it was never finished. And that was the main problem. The engine is made largely from brass, and it was never designed to be a working engine. Well, I don't think so anyway, because it's made out of the wrong materials, and some of the parts don't fit together very well, particularly the standard on the low-pressure cylinder. This is also a non-reversing engine, and it uses piston valves. When I first started to dismantle the engine, I came across quite a few problems that I thought to myself, well, this is going to take a long time to put right. For instance, the valve timing is out, and initially it was very difficult to turn the flywheel because the whole thing is stiff. Including my Action Man, who's hanging from the shelf alongside the engine to give you some idea of the scale. He is 1 foot tall. Potentially the design of this engine is good, but it's very labour intensive to take it apart. When I connected some compressed air to the engine and turned it on, all I got was approximately 1/3 of a revolution, so the valve timing was definitely out. In this clip I'm removing the top cylinder cover of the high pressure valve chest, and you can clearly see a piston valve inside the piston valve cylinder. At this point I replaced the cover. This is the engine that I show in the opening and closing sequence that was bought from the antique dealer. Originally my friend always asked my advice on what he should buy, but then for some reason he started just buying things randomly. This is an extract from episode 15 of Renovating a Vintage Horizontal Twin-Cylinder Model Steam Engine. What I'm doing is plugging the old holes that are in the steam chest, mainly because they're drilled out of alignment. I was going to just fit a simple flange silver-soldered to a pipe. The steam inlet union on top of both of the steam chests is a very visible part, so I thought what I'll do is plug up the existing holes, file them flat, and make a special flange. I could have re-drilled them, but it's risking it a bit because it would have meant taking the thing apart again, and I didn't think it was necessary. Here I'm breaking off the brass bolts after they've been Loctited in position with Loctite 603, and then initially, using a drum sander, I cut them down a little bit, and the rest of it is handwork. This is a flat needle file, and I'm using it to flatten off the surface. You have to be very careful, and it's quite tedious work. But after much filing and sanding later, I eventually end up with a nice flat surface that I can successfully mount a flat flange to. Here you can see the general arrangement. For this I'm just using a commercial fitting, but in reality I will have to make a fitting that is 1/4 at one end and 5/16 by 32 threads per inch at the other end. This is the commercial fitting screwed in place just to hold the flange so I can have a look what it's going to look like. Scale is very important. Originally I was going to use a 1/4 inch pipe for the inlet, but it looked far too clumsy when I offered it up to the engine. You can see here by using a 3/8 by 32 nut and the 1/4 inch pipe how big and bulky it does actually look. It's okay for the exhaust but not for the inlet. Instead I'm going to use 3/16 diameter copper pipe, and this will be much better, much more in keeping with the scale of the engine. These are the fittings I'm going to use, the two flanges you've seen. These are the special adapter fittings, 1/4 to 5/16 by 32, and these are how they're going to fit together to go onto the engine. I think the time has come to talk about how prices are inflated on internet auction sites to mislead people into making them think that what they are looking at is worth a lot more than it actually is. And it's not just steam engines. I used to look at Hammond organs frequently, and some of the prices people were asking for these was ridiculous, but the adverts went round and round and round. One ran for about 2 years. But when people looked at the advert, they thought, oh, that's what they're fetching, I'll put mine on at a high price. And then it's a bit of a cycle. Eventually the prices return to normal, but for a while they make a lot of people who don't know any better think that certain items have a very high value. As I've mentioned a couple of times, this particular engine was bought from an antiques dealer, and I was with my friend when he bought them. This engine, which needed a lot of attention, wasn't cheap, and as my friend was buying it, I was saying, well, it needs this and it needs that, and I ended up doing the work, which took a long time, therefore cost him even more money. I don't think I mentioned it in this video, but I do repair steam engines and rebuild them on a commercial basis. My hourly rate is purposely not high, because it's basically my hobby turned into a business and I enjoy doing it anyway. Here's an engine that was a real problem, not good in the slightest. And like a lot of engines similar to this one, I think it's an apprentice piece. An apprentice piece is an engine built by a group of people to teach them mechanical engineering. And obviously they are seldom perfect. This engine took a lot of work to make it right. This is just one of the steam engines on which I will make an offer to my friend's son. I've shown this a few times in videos because it's a really nice old engine. It took a lot of work to get it to this stage, but now it's good. Here it is steaming in the garden, rocking about on a pile of Land Rover tyres which I used at the time. Since I moved to where I am now, I've become civilised and I use a picnic bench. As you can see, this steam engine does run quite well. As I reach the end of this particular video about buying and selling miniature steam engines, I'd just like to say, if in the listing it contains the word rare, this is to make people get excited and think they're getting a rare bargain, but in reality it is often not the case. This one could be called a rare apprentice piece workshop steam engine, and that now would be accurate, because there's only one like this as far as I can see, and it's the one I've worked on, so I know what it's like inside. I put the problems right, and it does actually run very well, as you can see in the video. There would be nothing stopping me in putting this on eBay with a price of £2,500 on it. It's not worth that much, but some people would think, oh look, I know a man who's got an engine like that, and there's one online at £2,500. Do you see what I mean? Here's an example of something completely different. Quite a few years ago, I bought a Webra model aeroplane engine via eBay. And I bought 2 or 3 and the prices were low. Then my friend who collects engines started to buy them, and in no time at all the price of them quadrupled from the price that I bought the first one, and for a while they started fetching quite a lot of money. The point I'm trying to make is that on internet auction sites, the actions of just two people, my friend and I, can influence the price that items sell at. And we didn't do it on purpose. To conclude this video, I would just like to ask you to try an experiment. Type something like Stuart 1010V, and that's Stuart spelled S-T-U-A-R-T, into the standard search box. Theoretically, you can then see what they're going for, but it's much better to go into the search box that says Advanced and click on Show Sold Listings. That will show the ones that have actually sold, and you'll be surprised how the prices have dropped in the last few years. I was doing exactly this a couple of days ago, and when I clicked on Sold Listings, the prices of 1010V steam engines really has dropped. I was quite surprised myself. Anyway, that's it for now. I have to go. Stay safe, stay healthy. Thanks for watching, and I really do hope you found this video useful. Please take the time to visit my Mainsteam Models website and click on the section of the website that says Video Playlists. And by doing that, you can find other videos that you may like to watch. And by using the playlists, you can actually watch the videos back to back.